No problem. I'm Norman, and I'm going
Hi.
to just read a quick announcement before you get started.
Sure.
And I think by now, those folks who wanted to select this breakout room have already done so. I think there's some folks that are still in the main room trying to get sorted out, but not too many. So, but in the meantime, I do want to just make this announcement before you get started. I just want to thank all of you for participating in this track, which is entitled UOG and University of Hawaii at Manoa's MSW Partnership, Seminar and Pathways to Obtaining an MSW Degree. As a reminder, we encourage you to share your questions and comments in the chat. Enrich your professional practice through obtaining a Council on Social Work Education accredited MSW degree while continuing to reside in Guam. This unique partnership is between the University of Guam School of Health Division of Social Work and the University of Hawaii at Manoa, Thompson School of Social Work and Public Health. The partnership aims to increase access to an MSW degree for residents of Guam by offering courses through primarily synchronous distance education methods such as Zoom.com. The partnership is invested in enhancing UOG students' exceptional BSW education through access to MSW level courses, which pave the way for students to take the next step towards achieving social justice and health equity for all. The partnership prioritizes the generation, transmission, and application of knowledge for the global enterprise with special attention to Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders, and Asian populations in the Pacific region. At the conclusion of this session, participants will be able to identify pathways and strategies to MSW degree attainment. Please note there are exciting new updates to eligibility and admissions. Having said that, it is my honor to introduce you to your presenter, Theresa Krief.
Thank you, Norman. Okay, so can you guys, let's see if I can see you, give me a thumbs up if you've heard me do this presentation before. I don't know if you're able to do that. I'm gonna go with that you're not able to do it. Naomi, are you able to give me a thumbs up?
Sure, I can give you a verbal or do you want to?
A verbal works too. Great. Okay, have you heard me give this presentation before?
I have.
Okay.
I just don't remember all the details, so I'm here again.
Okay, so let me start with the new information so that those of you who maybe have already heard this before can get excited to stay through the whole thing. So basically, our new information is that we are admitting a new group of students every year. So some of you will remember before we had this interesting 3-year cycle. We admitted 2 of the 3 years and 1 of the years was a 2-year thing. And now we're admitting every year, and you can choose either a 1-year program or a 2-year program. The other exciting thing, and I'll go through all the details on this, but the other exciting thing is if you have a 3.0 in all your social work classes and a few other things, you're sort of automatically admitted. And so, so that's really exciting. So we're going to get into all the details of that. If you know someone else who's interested in the program but isn't here today, I can provide them with the slideshow. But just as a reminder, I'll do the agenda here. So the agenda, we're going to go over what it is, talk about instructional modalities, tuition fees, etc. But I wanted to remind you guys how this started. So this was many decades of relationship between UOG and in particular, Dr. Damas, Dr. Natividad, Dr. Lizama, Dr. Schwab, and then certainly now Dr. Diaz, and then also Joe Hasugliak. So as well as President Robert Underwood, so previous UOG president, our former Dean of Social Work, Noreen Mokawau at the University of Hawaii. So many decades of conversation. And what we ultimately ended up is starting in 2012, we began this program where the highly qualified BSW students from UOG would actually stay in Guam through Zoom and join our MSW Advanced Standing Program, which is basically the shortened master's degree. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. But so here we are, everybody's using Zoom for everything. So we know that you have the technology that's good enough that, and the other thing is I usually typically come out, we meet in person, sometimes we have lunch, we do all kinds of fun things. but now I can't do that. So instead, we're doing this wonderful Zoom thing, and I will, any questions that you guys have, looks like there's one chat. So if you have any questions, you can either raise your hand or you could put them in the chat box, whichever works best for you. Okay. So what is the MSW program distance education option? So basically at the University of Hawaii, we have a new name actually. So we're actually called the Thompson School of Social Work and Public Health. And that's exciting because that means public health has joined us. So we have the Department of Social Work, the Office of Public Health Studies, and then also the Center on Aging under the Thompson School. So in that Thompson School, in the Department of Social Work, we have a bachelor's in social work offered online and in person. Of course, with COVID, it's all online. But we also have an MSW program that's offered online typically to neighbor islands of Hawaii and then also Guam. And then we have our what we call campus-based program. And then we also offer a PhD in social welfare. And so inside of that, we have our distance education program, which is the slide that you guys see here, gives you the opportunity to earn a distance or an MSW degree through distance education. You get to stay in Guam. And you'll see later, the other exciting thing is that you get to pay in-state Hawaii tuition, which is way cheaper than what would happen if you actually moved to Guam and did the program. So all of the classes are delivered online via Zoom, and they're delivered synchronously, which is what we're doing now. So there's also what you guys have probably learned called asynchronous, which means there's the platform that you take the class by yourself, but all of our classes are offered synchronously. And then we have what's called this 1-year advanced standing option for students that already have a BSW degree from an exceptional institution, and that's you guys. An advanced standing means that instead of taking 57 credits to get your master's degree, you'll actually only have to take 30 credits to get your master's degree. And you'll be able to do that in, like the slide says. So I like that Consuelo gave me an exciting face or a shocked face, whichever one that is. So 57, you don't have to do. You can do it in 30, but you have to have your BSW and be highly qualified, which we'll go through. So you can choose to do that in 1 year, or you can choose to do it in 2 years. Either way, it's still 30 credits. So it just kind of depends on what your situation is. So basically what happens is that you meet in the fall and spring semester. If you do the 1 year, there's some summer work as well. If you choose the 1-year program, that means you would have to come to Oahu 1 time. So you come for basically a 3-day orientation session. If you choose the 2-year program, it means that you come to Oahu twice. So you can come and go to Costco when things are safer, of course. The other thing is that you'll typically, the difference between a bachelor's degree and a master's degree is that your classes meet all in one chunk, right? So if you have 2 classes a week, those classes will be like on a Tuesday for 2.5 hours, that's 1 class, and then a Wednesday for 2.5 hours, that's another class. And for Guam students, that actually, the class actually starts at 3 p.m. So in Hawaii, it starts at 6 or 7. And so for Guam, that actually starts at, 2 or 3 p.m. So let's see here. So technology requirements, we know that everybody's good to go. If you're on this Zoom with me, you have all the technology requirements. And so we do ask that you make sure that you have reliable access to the internet. And then there's actually technology requirements that you can click on. And I'll be providing this slide for you guys to check out. So another exciting thing, and so we don't actually do the math for you guys, but I will. So remember I said that tuition is in-state tuition. So you have to do 30 credits at $650, which is about $20,000 for tuition. And so basically you get a master's degree at just about $20,000 to $24,000. You have to factor in what would be your cost for books, and then also that 1 trip to Oahu. So this is a pretty significantly reduced cost than if you had to come to Oahu and pay out-of-state tuition, which is actually double plus. So out-of-state tuition is around $50,000. Any questions about that? Everyone's most excited about the tuition situation. So thank you, Consuelo, for the cheers. I appreciate that. Naomi, did you have a question? It keeps switching back to you for some reason.
Oh, I was just like yaying, so probably
Oh,
just.
it knows that you're saying yay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So this is what a typical 1-year advanced standing would look like. And again, there is that option to do the 2-year, depending on what works for you. But the typical option would be this 1 year. So literally, you could graduate with your bachelor's in social work in May from UOG, and you would take 2 classes starting in summer, like immediately that summer. And then you'd come in August for 3 days to Oahu, or longer if you choose. And then the fall semester, you'd have 3 actual classes. So 3 like a Wednesday, Thursday, or a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday class. And then you'd also do your field experience, which is 16 hours per week. And so that field experience starts in the fall, typically around September 1st. And it's about, as I said, it's 16 hours. So it's about 2 8-hour days. So in this 1-year advanced standing, it is a little bit difficult to work. It's still possible, but it's a little bit difficult. Certainly we know the load in master's level classes is a little more intense than bachelor's level classes. If you're someone who needs to work, I always encourage you to have conversations with me, and we can talk about what the 2-year advanced standing looks like. It allows you to take some of you, instead of having 3 classes a semester, you can take 2 by starting basically a year earlier. So I'd be happy to discuss that with you. So your field placement, you guys all know what this is. You either have your bachelor's in social work or are finishing that. Your field placement, I'm actually the person who does that. And I am so lucky because for all these years, almost a decade now, I've been able to work with Dr. Lizama, Dr. Schwab, Dr. Diaz, Dr. Natividad, and previously Joe Hasuglag. So we work together, and we actually do kind of I meet with you guys to find out what you're interested in. And then we kind of work to match you. And that's based on your areas of specialization. And so we have 3 or 4 areas of specialization. The one people are most excited about is behavioral mental health. That's the one that people typically think about if they're interested maybe in individual work with families or becoming a therapist. And then we have child and family. And then we have just this year expanded the program to include 2 others, and that's gerontology and health. So over the last 10 years, we only had 2, which was behavioral mental health and child and family. And so now, in addition to accepting students every year in either the 1-year or the 2-year program, we're accepting students for any of our 4 specialization areas, which is very exciting. So you guys have all of the access. So with regards to field placement, some things that are interesting, we try not to place you at the location where you're placed for your BSW. The exception for that might be if you were like at Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness and you were in the adult side, and then we put you in the adolescent side for your master's degree, but I typically try not to do that. And then we try not to place you in your place of employment. With COVID, there's been some adjustments there, but that's not our preference. The other exciting thing is if there's an organization that you've been wanting to work with and that organization doesn't have a master's level social worker, we have, who would be your supervisor, we have opportunities for you to get offsite supervision. And so we've done that at some really cool placements. So we recently had somebody placed at Senator Riddell's office. And so we had an offsite supervisor there. We recently had someone placed at the Micronesian One Stop Shop. And so they don't have an MSW, but we had someone do offsite. So I really work with you to find out what your area of interest is, to see how we can create an opportunity for you to get experience there. Let me see here. People always want to know what are some typical places. So I can basically, if you tell me a place and they do social work connected work, I can usually find you a placement there. That's what we've really appreciated about our partnership over all these years. I have, there's a new program that's actually just starting in Guam. It's called Best Buddies. And so they are having an exploratory kind of opportunity for the organization to start. And I'm going to place one of my students there for the fall. So so that's for this coming fall, even though there are brand new programs. So whoever gets placed there will have an opportunity to learn program development, both micro and macro social work. In the past, we've placed people at the VA, at the regional medical city, certainly dialysis places. We have people placed with individual clinical social workers. Really, the list goes on of where you'd like to be placed. Oh, DOE. We always have people placed at DOE, which is one of our most exciting placements. So that's fun. And then we're working on some military placements as well. Any questions about, it's so hard in like the Zoom tunnel. I don't get to see your faces or see if you have questions. So any questions about field placement? You can put them in the chat box, or I think you guys are allowed to unmute yourself. No, please, no questions. Naomi?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. It's always nice to hear a voice, so thank you for unmuting yourself.
Oh,
Okay,
cool.
go ahead. Did you want to say something?
Oh, no. I'm just listening.
Okay.
I did have a question. I'm sorry. So you said there was 4 and I caught 3, but if you can go over the 4 areas of specialization one more time.
So it's behavioral mental health,
Mm-hmm.
Child and family,
Mm-hmm.
health, and then gerontology. So gerontology is typically working with older adults.
Right.
Health is kind of our more macro placement. Child and family is anything that has to do with children and family, which almost everything does. And then behavioral mental health, as I said, is the one that people more traditionally select if they have an interest in clinical social work. You know, I should have actually started by telling you guys a little bit about myself, so that, because I think it matters to this conversation about specialization areas. So, so I actually have my bachelor's in social work, and then I went to Wichita State, which is a smaller institution in Kansas, because that's where my parents lived at the time. And then after that, I became a Peace Corps volunteer, and I lived in Yap State in a village called Wetchalab, and I did social work for 4 years. So I used to speak a fair amount of Yapese, but not so good now. And after I finished my time there, I actually went to graduate school. And in graduate school, I focused on a really macro area called social and economic development. But in my school, we were allowed to individualize our specialization. So mine was called Community Building with Marginalized Populations International Focus. And so my field placements, I actually did one in Belize with the National Garifuna Council. And so we actually spent 6 months going up and down Belize doing community development with people who are Garifuna. And so those are individuals who actually have a history. They escaped slave ships in the 1600s and then brought their culture, et cetera, to Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, and Central America. And then my other field placement was actually in an architectural firm that did community development. So I worked in a fairly impoverished community called East St. Louis. And I was the only social worker who they had ever worked with. And so I actually helped them do community development and engagement in their communities. And I say that because after all of that work and experience, I had all this macro experience. And when I got my first post-college job, the actual paying job, I started as what's called a school-based behavioral health specialist. And that's about as micro as you can get. So I actually started working with DOE. So whichever specialization area that you choose, you actually are able to do anything, and you're able to get licensed in any category, whether that's at the LSW, or if you're interested in doing your clinical licensure as well. So you don't have to make a lifetime decision in your specialization choice. And you are allowed to take some electives. So if you're interested in behavioral mental health, but you thought you might also want to learn more about gerontology, you can actually choose gerontology specialization classes as your electives. Very strange, there are fireworks going off outside of my house, so I apologize if you hear anything. Quite odd. Okay, so back to where my slide is, so electives, everyone wants to know what electives do you need to take. So you have to choose 3 electives, and electives that we have offered before is inside the DSM. The DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual. It's actually the book that we use to diagnose people for behavioral mental health disorders. Introduction to Forensic Social Work, Decolonizing Social Work, Treatment of Chemical Dependency, Social Work Perspectives on Immigrants and Refugees, Group Psychotherapy, and Marriage and Family Therapy. So you can also choose to do additional practicum hours if you're interested in that. And then you also are able to choose to do any of your electives in another degree pathway. So some of you may be interested in public health, education, disability studies, urban planning, psychology. So any other master's degree course that fits the criteria, and you'll have an advisor. Typically, you work with a woman named Jill Sir. She's really awesome. And so she's your advisor. So she can help you work through where you might want to find additional courses. And what's really cool about you guys thinking about coming in post-COVID is that a lot more electives are available online. And so both social work electives and electives from other degree pathways. So that's really exciting. Of course, we also have Hawaiian studies. We have the Center for Pacific Island Studies, and we have some leading Chamorro scholars there. So if you're interested in focusing in that area, certainly that's available to you as well. Okay, so this is the kind of like special page that says, if you do this, you kind of get automatically accepted. So the admissions requirements for advanced standing, and remember, advanced standing means that you only need to do 30 credits, which is 1 year, or 2, depending if you want to split that up, and instead of the 57. And so if you have a bachelor's degree from a program accredited by the Council of Social Work Education, which you're lucky you do, that would be UOG, and you have gotten your BSW no more than 7 years from the time that you would graduate with your MSW. And so I think for many of you, that's the case. So basically that means that if you choose to take a year or 2 off, you just have to start your master's degree and you have to finish your master's degree within 7 years of graduating with your bachelor's degree. So if you were going to graduate this year, which is 2021, you would have to start your MSW degree by, let's see, 2027, and then you would graduate in 2028. So, but I always recommend to start early because it's really hard to go back to school. So the other thing that might be a little bit of a problem, and again, I recommend, and I can put my contact information in the chat, I recommend that you have a conversation with me if the next bullet point is your situation. So you need a minimum GPA of 3.0, that's everything. So your entire GPA has to be a 3.0. And then you also have to have no grade lower than a B- in any class that has an SW in front of it. So a social work specialized class. If you're someone who has below a 3.0, and if you're someone who's gotten a B-, so 1 year we had somebody who got a C in their social work 200 class, or I think you guys call it 201. And so that was like the intro to social work. And we were able actually to petition for that person to have their material reviewed and considered for advanced standing. And the same thing holds if you're someone who has been going to school for, 10 years because you've had to start and stop because of family issues, and your GPA looks a little bit not good. What we really want to see is the GPA from your last 60 hours. And those are typically your bachelor's level hours. So if you're someone who has below a 3.0 overall, but you have a really high GPA in those last 60 hours, it's still something that you should consider petitioning for meeting the advanced standing requirements. You also have to have a background in liberal arts, but surprised if you have a bachelor's in social work, that's an automatic. And then we want to see evidence that you have personal qualifications and social work related experience, motivation, and interest that indicate your potential for successful graduate school education and professional practice. What you will see here, actually, let's see if okay. Well, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Okay. I was going to tell you what makes up the application process, but this is actually one of the things that actually gets a little bit complicated. So you have to apply to 2 places. The first place you apply is actually University of Hawaii, Manoa, Office of Graduate Education, and you give them money, $100. And then you also make sure that they get official copies of your non-UH system transcripts. And so they get those and they keep the money and they keep the transcripts. We never see those transcripts and we never see the money. What happens next is that you actually apply to us. And so the link that you see here, it's not going to let me copy it. So the link that you see here is actually, let me go, the link to the location where you can find all the forms to apply. And that has to be mailed in hard copy at this time. So typically you have to apply by February 1st. So for you guys, that would be February 1st of 2022. So we've already done our applications for this year, but it would be February 1st of 2022. And then you have to give us all the stuff that's in the packet, including your transcripts. So you send another set of transcripts to us. Okay, now beginning fall of 2021, if you meet the criteria that we talked about, that 3.0 and that you don't have any B minuses, all you have to give us is the application form, a statistical information form, the liberal arts background form, and a copy of a transcript from every university, or if you would went to Guam Community College or someplace on the continent, then you would have to give us a copy of that. Basically, you put that package together and we're going to look at it and then we're going to let you know that you're basically accepted. So there's no personal statements, there's no resume, there's no letters of recommendation. We are saying because you have a high quality bachelor's in social work degree, put all these things together, we look at it and you'll be accepted. So it's not automatic acceptance, but it basically is automatic acceptance. Does anyone have any questions about that? Because that's a really big change. Before it was 3 letters of recommendation. We had to talk about where they came from. You had to give us copies of your field experience. It was quite complicated, but now you're essentially automatically accepted. So any questions about that? You can put them in the chat or you can unmute yourself, whichever you prefer. You have any questions?
Sorry, my name is Noria Kalaka, and yeah, I'm part of the panel early this morning. So I'm interested in the master's program, but you mentioned something about like a double transcript for UH and then another transcript for the master's program with you, right?
Yeah.
So we're looking at 2 official transcripts, or we can just send a copy.
No, so
right?
yeah, we're a really good bureaucracy, so we don't actually share the transcript. So you have to send a set of transcripts from every place that you got credit for your college degree. So wherever that is, you have to send an official set of transcripts to those guys at this one at the UH Office of Graduate Education, and then you also have to send a separate set of transcripts to us. Some of you might have challenges getting transcripts. If you do have challenges, we just make sure that you let us know. So we can't officially accept you until we have the actual official transcripts. But if you do have copies, sometimes you can send those along and let us know that you're still in the process of getting your official transcripts. But yeah, they do have to be separate. I wish it wasn't that way, but thank you for asking that clarifying question. Does that answer your question?
Sure is.
Perfect. Sorry to make it complicated, and it's a little more expensive too, because I think you sometimes have to pay to get copies of those. Okay, so in the event that you are somebody who received a C in one of your BSW courses, this is what I was talking about, you can still apply for this advanced standing, but you have to submit all this stuff. So if you don't have a C and you have that 3.0 overall, just be really grateful that you don't have to turn this stuff in. But if you have classmates and they're like, oh no, I have a C, Lynn, okay, I think Berna Lynn, was that question to me? I think we lost Berna Lynn, and then, did we? Is Berna Lynn here? Yeah, there you are.
Yes.
Berna Lynn.
Yes, hi, I'm here. Yes, that question is for you. Hi.
Yeah. Hi. So your question is which one a new requirement? Sorry, my chat wasn't flashing.
The one that you say that, because I remember, because I'm a class of 2018 graduate, and my my classmates, they did the master's degree, and they had to get the
everything,
the recommendation and all that. So with that new requirements, is that moving forward on when like
it's,
that new requirements that's starting this year all the way to whenever?
Forever, yes.
Okay.
So regardless of when you graduated, these are the new requirements. So as long as you meet that, as long as you're a person who is going to graduate with an MSW, so that takes a year, within 7 years of graduating with your BSW. So let's see, 2023 minus 7. Who can do that? So if you were graduated between 2016 and now, you are good to go with the new requirements. Anybody who wants to apply and has a bachelor's in social work and meets that criteria of they will have graduated with their MSW within 7 years of getting their BSW, all they have to submit is the stuff that you see now on the screen. So you don't have to do all those things that your classmates did. Don't tell them. They're going to be really upset that they had to fill out all that stuff. But this is, but this is new information. And so we really want to make sure that everybody is able to, it actually opens it up for people, right? Because what we know is that you have a high quality BSW. And so for us, it's clear to us that you meet the criteria. And then it looks like Lynn was asking, can you get the slides emailed to you? I guess so. Let me do this to make it a little easier. And so I'm going to put my email address in there. And so if you would like the slides, all I need you to do is email me so that I have your email address, and then I can send the slides to you. It'll be me or Jill Sir, and you'll see her name. But that way, if you have any other questions, you see my information in the chat box. You can always message me, and we can talk about that. Okay. Any other questions while I have my chat box open? Okay, none yet. Okay. Okay, so back to this. So this is what Berna Lynn was saying. So before, everybody was applying for the MSW had to do all of this stuff. 3 letters of recommendation. One had to be from a faculty at UOG. One had to be from your field person. You had to do a personal statement, a resume, a copy of your senior field experience. But if you meet all those criteria, you don't have to do that. However, if you did receive a C, we will still consider your application for advanced standing, which means we would kind of go through and say, oh, if you received a C in this class, maybe we need you to take 1 more class, right? So then you might have to do 33 credits. But still, I think this is a much better situation than what previously was happening. Any questions about this one? If you received a C, most people like to talk to me about that privately. So if that's you, go ahead and email me. Okay, so the exciting thing is if you want to start in fall of 2022, which is the next time, it's called fall of 2022 admissions, although you do take classes in summer 2022. If you wanted to start then, you actually have to have your application postmarked in the snail mail to us by February 1st. And that's February 1st Guam time. It just has to say February 1st. And in order to get it postmarked, it just means that you give it to the post office by this time and they put a stamp on it that literally puts the day February 1st. And this is the mailing address. And so that, of course, will be there. Now, financial aid. The difference between a bachelor's degree at UOG and then the change to a master's degree at UH is that UOG belongs to Guam. And so all of the money and taxes and support and all of those things fund UOG. And so you have a lot of financial opportunities at a bachelor's level. Many people have access to Pell Grants. Pell Grants don't exist for graduate school. And so that's unfortunate. But over the past previous years, we've had some situations where we were able to use the health scholarship to provide some funding, sometimes significant funding for master's degree students. So we never know if that's going to happen. I am always in touch with both the president of UOG, the dean of the School of Health, also all of the faculty in the Division of Social Work. I also meet regularly with financial aid at UOG. So we're always having conversations to see how this might be an option. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. That being said, we encourage you to look broadly. There are some scholarship apps that you can look into to see if there's something unique about you, the world that you kind of inhabit. If you happen to be Native Hawaiian, there are actually scholarships for you through the University of Hawaii, because the University of Hawaii has a responsibility to serve and create opportunities for Native Hawaiian students. And then here are some links to other financial aid opportunities. Typically, I can tell you what happens is people will choose to take out loans. Those loans have a variable interest rate. Sometimes you might need someone to co-sign with you. The idea behind getting $20,000 to $25,000 in loans is that with an MSW, we would anticipate that your salary is increased by $10,000 or more a year after your BSW, right? So theoretically, you should be able to pay those loans back pretty quickly. Also, when you look at other places that you might be interested in getting your master's in social work, we're $20,000. Many of them are double or more. And so that's something for you to consider as well. My job in this partnership over the last decade plus has been to encourage you all to consider getting a master's degree. We'd love for you to do that through us. We believe we're the best fit for you at the University of Hawaii for a variety of reasons, but at the same time, we know that you may have interest in going virtually or in person to another location. So I'm happy to talk to you about MSW degrees in general. And then more specifically, if you have questions about the Thompson School, I'm happy to have those conversations with you as well. But I really want to encourage you to think about whether you're a first generation college student or whether your family's forcing you to get a master's degree, that this is something that can be really exciting. It allows you really to focus in on growing your professional development in the field of social work. So it's something to consider, but there is the financial cost. I should say we've had oh man, we've had the most interesting ways that people have paid for their tuition. So we have, of course, people get loans. Sometimes they're doing car washes for tuition assistance. Sometimes they're babysitting significantly. Sometimes their auntie or uncle decides, I want to give you this money because I know you're going to support our community when you're done. You'd really be surprised once you talk to people about this process, how willing they are to support you, because you're committing the rest of your life essentially to, giving back as a social worker, which you're doing as a BSW as well. But this just gives you kind of one more level for that. And then kind of back to the previous question that Norika talked about, we're a really good bureaucracy. So we actually, if you have questions about the distance education option, which is like how it works, all of those details, you actually send an email to the sswde@hawaii.edu. And if you have separate questions about admissions or the application process, you actually send an email to sswadmit@hawaii.edu. And so those are two different people. The distance education person will actually have you reach out to Jill Sir. Jill's super awesome. Jill and I were just talking. She's never been to Guam. So we were just talking about as soon as things clear up, she needs to come and visit Guam with me. She is born and raised in Hawaii, went to school in Michigan. And then the admissions office is Sarah Okamura. And if you guys do choose to apply, you will learn to love Sarah. She's really wonderful. She's able to help you answer questions like what to do if your documents or your transcripts are stuck somewhere. Both of these women are super, super helpful, and they're really connected and committed to helping students access this opportunity. Looks like I have a question. Do you know many UOG? Do you know many UOG students who have, yeah. So this particular distance education option is actually, I'm gonna go back to my very first slide. So this is actually called the Guam option. So we have had this program for since 2012, and we specifically focused on UOG and you guys being a part of our Pacific pipeline. And so I think at this point I have 45 graduates. I can tell you that I have never had to turn away an applicant. So we have always had enough seats. In fact, some in the very beginning, we couldn't confirm how many seats there were going to be. So sometimes we actually had 10 extra seats. And so that's still been the case. There's always the seats available for Guam students. So that we have ever worried about. So that's a really good question. You guys are highly qualified applicants. We love when you join our Hawai'i students. Many of our distance education Hawai'i students come from Molokai, the big island of Hawai'i, Kauai, and then also Maui. So you join a group of students who, and some of them actually come from the rural parts of the main island, Oahu. So on where our university is, it can take 2.5 hours to drive from the farthest part to the University of Hawaii at Manoa. So we've just opened up the distance education option to people who actually live on Oahu as well. So one of our favorite parts is when we bring together students from UOG. You guys bring so much powerful energy to our students. You have this depth of experience, particularly in your community activism, that blows our students and faculty away. So it's really, really exciting for our students to get to learn from you all, and you get to learn from them. The other thing that we think is super cool, or I think is super cool, is that many of the organizations that you have on Guam, we also have in Hawaii. And so we'll actually see social workers moving back and forth, or we see clients moving back and forth. And so this opportunity to get to know people who are working on Oahu or Maui Island or Molokai Island, and you really develop kind of lifelong relationships, and you're able to call on them. Let's say you are someone who works at the VA in Guam, but you're trying to get something for somebody who, one of your people who is going to Honolulu, you have this relationship. And so this year we will have 42 students in our distance education option, 160 some in our campus-based option, even though that's still online until COVID clears. But of those, I think I will have 10 of those 40 some students are actually Guam students, which is a big percentage. And so you guys are, and by Guam students, I mean the people who who are living on Guam, who take the degree pathway. So of course you may be born and raised somewhere else, but that was a really good question. So thank you for asking. Any other questions? I'll go back to, I still am on that slide. Any other questions, burning questions that you guys have, things that you're worried about, that you feel comfortable asking out loud or typing?
What's the annual tuition again? So
I'm only allowed to give you an estimate because for us, we make you go to the tuition page. So I can tell you that my calculation, let me go back to it. So my calculation is it's 30, I can tell you that it's 30 credits, and each credit in-state tuition, right? So what's called resident or online is 650. And so that ends up being about $20,000 for the entire degree. You have to add to that books. And so your books might be for the 30 credits might be around $1,000 or $1,500. And then you do have to fly to Oahu one time and stay for 3 days. That's the in-person. Now, so right now, the people who are starting in fall of this year, they don't actually have to come to Oahu. So they're saving themselves all of that money because that will be through distance because of COVID. But we do anticipate that in fall 2022, we would have the in-person requirement. So if I were to guess, I'd say it's about $24,000 roughly for the entire degree. So after $24,000, you have a master's degree.
Awesome. So with that being said, the Oahu student, letting them stay home and be safe because of COVID, that also applies if there's any from Guam, if there's any students from Guam, right?
Yeah, Yeah. So
Awesome.
last year, our Guam students did not have to fly to Oahu. And then we also have all of our neighbor island students who also, because of COVID, could not fly to Oahu. So everybody who does distance education, they have to fly to Oahu, or in the case of the few students we have who live in the rural area of Oahu, they drive. But everybody has to come to the main campus one time for every year that you choose to be in the program. So like I said, some people may choose that 2-year program where they spread out their credits over 2 years. People choose that because it allows them to work, at least in the beginning. But yeah, so nobody has to come to Oahu this year, but next year we're hoping that because of COVID, yeah. Oh, I should also say, so Narika, you raise a good point. We, as you guys know, hotels are super expensive, both in Guam and Oahu.
Yes.
Yeah. So many people will choose to stay with relatives. They have some kind of relatives, but on campus, we also have a place called Lincoln Hall. And Lincoln Hall is like an extra nice dormitory. Like it's actually where faculty from other places, when they come to the university, stay. And so we are able to reserve a certain amount of rooms there. And so then you're actually on campus. So you don't need a car, you don't need anything. And those rooms are usually around $50 to $75 a night. So they're much cheaper than if you had to stay in Waikiki or rent a car or something. So, there's the opportunity, the bus from the airport to the university. And then there are some of those rooms in Lincoln Hall actually have like mini kitchens in them. And so you can, I always like to say we can be college students and we can eat our ramen and save money that way. Yeah. So that is something that we, yeah.
My other question is, if I'm like interested in this master's program and when I want to go online for this, am I mandated to stay in Guam and do the classes, or as long as I have a connected internet?
So so we should have a conversation. So right now, what we are approved to do is that people need to indicate that they are going to reside on Guam. We understand that for a variety of reasons, people may need to be elsewhere. So if that's your situation, we should have a conversation about that. For instance, let me give you an easy example that isn't complicated. If I had a student who had to go to the continent for health reasons or to care for a family member, they could take their classes from there. We know that there's a whole host of other reasons. We know that people may reside in different locations, whether that's Rhoda or Chuk or the Marshalls. But if that's your situation, it's probably best for us to just have a conversation about how we can make each individual student's situation work. Because we have figured things out in the past. So
awesome. Well, I'll just maybe I'll just spit out my situation, and I already emailed you on asking the presentation.
Great.
Maybe we can go from there with the conversation. But my situation right now, I'm a graduate of I was a cohort of 2017 UOG social work. I already have my BSW, but I graduated. I came in a little bit late, so I had to graduate because of my internship. I had to graduate in 2018, so I left Guam. Now that I'm back home in Pohnpei, I'm working for a division of social services.
Oh, great!
As the youngest chief in Pohnpei State Government. So
congratulations!
I'm really keen to this master's program because I feel like it's an opportunity and it's a journey for me, because what I'm lacking in this division is counseling. We have a newly program, which is the disability program, and I'm well aware of the DSM manual that Natividad and Lizama, all of them taught me. So the thing is, we want to go ahead and start on our data collection for disability. How many disability we have in Pohnpei? So with that being said, it's really not allowing me, because I don't have some sort of certification or upper level in education to go about this, And with this situation, we have doctors that are out there. We're supposed to be flying in to help us out in this big project here in Ponape. So maybe this master's program would allow me to, go about something,
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think so. So thank you for sharing, and I'm actually thrilled. You probably are friends with or friendly with or related to Sylvia Elias, one of my favorite people on the planet. Yeah.
She's my second cousin, yeah.
Yes. So we know
in FSM, by far in the FSM, I think she's the only master's in social work that I know of.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a couple, so we have a couple others that we know of. I think we have 5 or 6 Chukis women, but many of them are no longer in Chuk, right? So yeah, so that's the challenge. But yeah, you've already emailed me, so why don't you and I plan a time to talk about how we can make that work? And the same goes for everyone else. Let's if your circumstances, whether they're similar to Norika's or they're different, it always makes sense to have a conversation to see how we can make this happen for you. And then sooner rather than later, I always encourage you to start your master's degree sooner rather than later, because then life gets in the way.
Yes. I'm feeling the fight right now. That's why I'm stuck with the breakout session, and I saw Universe, UOG, and Universe. I'm like, oh wow, MSW, let's go there.
Yeah, no, I'm thrilled that you did, and I actually have some work that Sylvia and I have been talking about, and some work that I was interested in doing in Pohnpei next spring. So we might be able to even.
I'll be here for 30 years. Yeah, I'll be here as the chief for 30 years. Yeah.
Oh, we hope so.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll be, and you've already emailed me. So, so thank you for sharing that information. And then the rest of you guys, if you have other questions, I would also say if there's someone in this group who has already applied and for some reason didn't finish their application process, because of the new rules beginning fall of 2021, I would welcome a conversation with you all as well. And the other thing is, it has been our goal from the very beginning. Certainly my goal was to do capacity development in the geographic region of Micronesia. So that has always been sort of my professional goal. So this is actually sort of where I believe we're all supposed to be having this conversation. So while you'll have many other options, we really want you to encourage how the work that we do at the University of Hawaii, specifically connected with Native Hawaiians, people who are Chamorro, people from the geographic region of Micronesia, how the work that we do is connected to capacity building and development for you in those spaces. For those of you who do live on Guam, our goal all along was so that you didn't have to leave your communities to come to another community to do your field placement for free in that community, and then that community off your island benefits. And so we really feel like one of the benefits of this program is that you're able to do your field placement hours in the communities that you are committed and connected to. And so that for us is really a win, rather than making you leave and the challenges of how much it costs on Oahu, et cetera. So we really hope that you'll consider this option, but as I also said, my job too is capacity development. So if you are interested in an MSW somewhere else and you want to talk with me about that, some of you may know I have had students who are interested in going to the University of Nebraska or Berkeley. And so we'll just talk about how they can develop an application that makes them successful there as well. So I'm not just recruiting for us. I just want to do capacity development for the region. So that being the case, if you guys don't have any more questions, you saw my email address, which I will, oh, wait, I saw it. There's more. How did these pop up? Okay, let's see. Is there a special discount for senior citizens who are interested in getting a master's in social work? There is not a special discount, but what the discount is that anybody who resides on Guam and has that BSW is able to get the significantly discounted rate. Previous to 2003, people who were from the Federated States of Micronesia, Palau, Marshalls, Guam, CNMI, they actually all got in-state tuition at any University of Hawaii school. That changed after 2003. And so now that's why we're super excited for the last almost 10 years to have created this opportunity where it is what's called in-state tuition. So it's much reduced. I think it's 100%. Like I said, I think it's 50 plus thousand. So it's more than half, or less than half the cost. So that's the special discount. Let's see if there's any, and it looks like a couple other people sent emails. Oh, I should also say many of the people that I saw on our call when I popped in when Dr. Tim was talking. So I saw about 15 or 20 of our graduates there. In addition, Dr. Lizama is a graduate, Joe Hasugliog is a graduate, Theresa Diaz is a graduate of our PhD program, and then Dr. Natividad. So we have a long, long history of working with you all. Terry Lynn Francisco is a graduate of our program, and then many others. So if you have questions, you certainly have a community of people who have degrees from our institution, so you can check with them as well. So any questions from you guys? Comments?
I'm good from Ponape.
You what?
I'm good from Ponape.
Perfect. We're thrilled with your Wi-Fi. Excellent. Okay. Oh, one more. Let's see. Just people saying thank you and great opportunity. So I will look forward to getting emails from those of you who are interested. I will be in Guam as soon as, so I typically come 2 to 3 times a year. And so I will be there as soon as we're able to fly. I also am the person who does check-ins for field. So I come usually in December to check with your field placement. So if you started next fall, I would be visiting you and your field in person to discuss how things are going with you. And then I'm usually available for all of those things. Naomi is asking, how long will we need to stay for the yearly visit to Oahu? It's typically 2 to 3 days, really short period of time. In the past, I've actually been able to connect some of my students. So by the time you come to Oahu, you know where you're going to be placed. And so I had someone who was doing domestic violence work on Guam, and I actually connected them so they were able to spend a bit more time with kind of like a sister organization in Hawaii. People who I placed at the VA before were able to visit the VA in Honolulu. And so if you're someone who wants to stay longer, we can definitely work that out for you. A lot of people also come and go shopping because Costco, and then a lot of people come to visit their family, but it's usually just 2 to 3 days with us, or 2.5 days. Yeah, good question, Naomi. Thank you. Any other questions from you guys? Okay, so thank you for taking your time. It's 8:30 at night for me here, and it's raining and there's weird fireworks happening, but I know that it's still late afternoon for you guys, and hopefully you and your families are safe and healthy. I know this is such a challenging time, and if you're somebody who's graduating this year, I want to wish you congratulations for persevering through that. And if you're someone who's a social worker right now, also thank you for all the work you're doing in this challenging time. We're hoping that you guys are having vaccination opportunities in ways that support the work that you do and keep you and your family safe. So, so yeah, that'll be all I have for you guys, and I'll stay on for a couple minutes if anyone wants to talk with me privately. Otherwise, I look forward to chatting with you via email. And it looks like we have our moderator back.
Thank you, Theresa. So thank you everybody for joining us for our day 1 of our 2021 Social Work Regional Training Conference. As a reminder, the conference will resume tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. To get back to the conference tomorrow, you can use the same Zoom link that you used this morning. So please just have that on hand when you try to log in tomorrow. A few of our breakout rooms are still going on, so if you would like to join those other ones, they're kind of going on the tail end of those presentations as well, or if that's it for today. We look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Theresa. Have a great evening.
Thank you.